Chapter 10. The Ride Down. It was as if the ground of the earth had fallen out from beneath their feet. Milo felt his entire stomach lurch up into his throat, and he gagged at the feeling it gave him in his chest. Dexter was screaming about his heart skipping a beat, and Alice was just screaming. But just as Milo took it all in, it suddenly seemed to vanish away. He found himself in a haze of nothingness as he continued to fall. The ghostly specter hovered in close and shook its head in disappointment. Milo could make out features in the man's eyes that he couldn't see before. It was becoming clearer. He held up his hand and waited for Milo to press his against it. Slowly, a light seemed to engulf them, and the ghost smiled brightly. It reminded Milo of happy times at home. Times when his family would gather around a table and share stories of happiness and love, and when their hearts would bond through just being near to each other. It was like a happy sadness that tugged at Milo's heart as he looked through the man's solid white eyes. "You're so close, Milo, but you're just so far away." It spoke with a voice like ice. "I don't understand." Milo sounded as if he were pleading for help. "It's simple, Milo. All you must do is open your eyes, and everything will become as clear as crystal glass. Just like the glass Mrs. Jane would buy from the store." Milo remembered Mrs. Jane in a less than flattering light. She was the only lady that would regularly attend the store and never buy anything, unless Milo carried it to the register for her. She was from a wealthy family that had gathered some power in the community, and therefore everyone in town would follow her commands, so long as it meant staying in her favor. "How do I open my eyes then?" asked Milo. "You have to see it for yourself, and accept it as true. Otherwise, you'll drag your friends into a death trap. You've been blind and selfish, Milo." "What have I done?" "Don't you see?" asked the man as he took his hand away from Milo's. "Can you not accept the facts that stand before you?" Milo turned his head as he reached for the answers. The man shook his head, but as he did, it was as if the dust fell from his face, and the image became perfectly visible. His every feature suddenly became obvious to Milo. It dawned on him so heavily that he almost forgot that he was falling through space. "That's right, Milo. Look at my face and accept what you've been denying. See the truth before you and know that it's all going to be okay. You don't need to look anymore, son, unless you look to the flames." Milo's father stood before him as if they had both never left home. Milo could see the shop spring up around them as sunlight seemed to pour in through the front window. The sounds of the register and customers making conversation seemed to reverberate through Milo's brain as he spun around to see everything. But something was still different. William Brisby looked older than he had been the last time Milo had seen him. His eyes looked tired, and his hair was grayed around the edges and seemed to be pulling away from his former hairline. "Foul darkness fell over our home, Milo. You know this isn't real." His voice was clearer and solid, more like Milo remembered it. "I watched everything fade away," Milo said as a single tear fell down his cheek. His breath seemed to catch in his lungs, and he held a hand to his side. "I know you did, son. You stood by the whole way. Kept the shop open. I've been watching you for a very long time." The sound of his father's voice was like the sound of a man crying out in the wilderness. "What am I supposed to do? I don't know where you are." The image of Bill shook and seemed to rattle as if clouded in static. He frowned. "You won't ever find me, Milo. I'm not here anymore." He smiled as if this were good news. "You don't need to save a ghost." It was the truth that Milo had been pushing from his mind since the very beginning. His father, most likely, couldn't be alive. Milo was too late. Please, God, no. It's okay, Milo. His dad placed a warm hand on his shoulder. It made Milo quiver and shake. That same strong hand had always been there to help Milo back to his feet when he would stumble or fall. You did the best you could, son. That's all any man can be expected to do. You did more than you had to do. But I wanted to save you. I thought... I don't even know what I was thinking. Milo was angry at himself for not seeing it all sooner. I was so sure that if I did everything right and the way I was supposed to, I could make a difference. I thought... You thought you could save the entire neighborhood and that life would go back to the way it was during the good times. It's admirable that you wanted to save everyone. But nobody can do everything. I thought I was almost there. You are almost there, said the ghost. You can still save your friends. You can still get out of Crow Haven, Milo. His father lowered his hand and gave him the stern look that told Milo that he really meant what he was about to say, and to listen up. That boy with the long hair needs help finding his loved one, so help him. That young girl needs someone to protect her from the people that have hurt her. He paused. Dexter trusts you, and would go to the ends of the earth for you, Milo. That's the kind of friendship you don't find very often. You can save all of them. I'm scared I won't be able to do it. I'm afraid that I'll just let them all down. Like I let you down. You've never let me down before, and I trust that you won't now. Your decisions are what made you the man you are, and the one you will become will be decided by your choices now. Do you understand that? You've never let me down, Milo. The air seemed to be getting colder, and the light was fading fast. Milo knew that his father was slipping away for the last time. Every second was a strange blessing, and yet Milo had so many unanswered questions. He began to cry. Is there even a brighter future out there somewhere? He asked at last. There always is, his father replied. Everything vanished in a puff of smoke that made Milo's head hurt, and he suddenly became aware of everything screaming around him again. Everyone besides Victor, who was calmly hanging onto the cage around them as they dropped through the darkness. Do something, you bastard! Screamed Dexter as he shoved Victor across the deck. Very well. Press that yellow button. Dexter began pressing every yellow button he could get his hands on until he finally smashed his finger onto the one that Victor was motioning towards. The cart lurched and began to slow down. Alice was clutching Milo and pressing against his chest. She had his shirt pulled tight into her fists, and he had to shift to maintain his balance. Dexter, however, fell on his face. He just smiled and laid his head back down as Victor grinned at him. The cart was still descending, but with every passing moment it seemed to be slowing down. We just might make it to the bottom after all, said Dexter with an air of confidence. But Victor was quick to correct him. Oh no, Mr. Alicott. This elevator will only take us so far down. There is much we will need to pass before we reach the bottom of this pit. Milo dropped his head and watched as a drop of blood fell from his forehead and onto the floor. He quickly became aware of the sharp pain that the cut was causing, and shot a hand to his face. It wasn't his worst injury. That's pathetic, Dexter said as he held out a finger. Hardly a scrape, and you're bleeding like a stuck pig. Shut up. I don't even remember how I got the damn thing, Milo retorted. You must have fallen onto a nice soft cushion or something. Milo smiled, and Dexter cracked up in a fit of laughter. Victor looked absolutely disgusted, while Alice just shook her head in what appeared to be extreme disappointment. It took them a moment before they even realized that the cart had stopped moving, and that they were suspended with the door open on either side of them. Well, which way do we go now? Victor was looking at Milo with a look that sent him chills. He brushed his long hair back out of his face and pulled open both doors. On the side nearest Milo, there were lines of vehicles as far as the eye could see. Victor's door led to more rows of crates. I say we go through the cars, Milo said. That means I can take the crates and boxes. The rest of them let out a collective, "What?" Yes, kids, it's time that I leave you all and venture towards my wife. You will understand that it's not personal, I hope. Besides, we may meet again before this is all over. The young lady may find something interesting if you continue on that way. Alice looked back and forth between Victor and Milo, searching for an explanation. What will she find? Asked Milo. Answers, I would imagine. The kind that people spend their entire lives looking for and never find. Perhaps even the answers that she's been searching for all this time. She suddenly seemed interested. It was as if he had said something that triggered her reaction. Was there something he knew that she hadn't told the rest of them? The lady seems to know just what I'm talking about, Victor said as he stepped into the room and away from them. Milo held up his hands in protest. What are you talking about, Victor? But Victor just smiled in response before pulling the gate shut with a bang. Milo and Dexter both lunged forward to try and get it open again, but to no avail. Victor had somehow managed to lock it from the other side. Alice remained standing with a cold stare plastered across her face, so Milo went to her. What did he mean, Alice? He asked. What answers are you looking for exactly? Even Dexter stood looking at her sympathetically now. Milo put his hands on her arms and looked deeply into her eyes. Alice, what are you out here searching for? It's so much more complicated than any way I can describe it. Please, let's just keep moving. She went to pull away, but Milo knew that he had assisted her in hiding her secrets for far too long. Dexter and Milo deserved answers for all that they had been through together. By the look on her face, Alice accepted it. The day you found me, she began slowly. On the day my family was murdered. My father wasn't dead when I first returned home. She trailed off and Dexter put a hand on her shoulder. Milo still held her. He told me to seek answers. He said I wasn't my parents' child. I was adopted. He kept saying this was all his fault. It was his fault. She stopped again as she realized that she was starting to yell and calmed herself. I asked him whose fault it was, over and over. Maybe he just meant that he felt bad for his own mistakes in life, Dexter said softly. No! Alice shook her head violently. Just before he died, he told me a name. What name? Asked Milo. Cephas. Cephas Pandora? That's who your father named? Asked Milo. I think so. Alice fell into a heap. Dexter, however, only sighed at the name. Of course it's his fault. This entire hellhole of a city is his fault. It doesn't mean anything, he said. It doesn't matter. There's at least a small chance that I can find answers down here. Maybe Cephas Pandora knows why I was adopted, or where I come from. Alice finished speaking and the boys nodded in agreement. I guess we're all running to or from something, said Dexter. Come on, Milo, don't forget we're here to find your father. But Milo certainly couldn't forget why they were all there. Nor could he forget the ghostly white image of his father confirming his deepest fears. Even if it had just been some trick conjured up by Pandora and Elite, Milo knew that his father was gone and had accepted it fully. What if he's not here, Dex? What if he's been gone away from here for months? Years even? I can't even remember how long he's been missing. It was true, even though it was awful to admit. His memories of his family seemed as if they had taken place only yesterday. But if Milo gave it some thought, he realized that it had been several years since he started running the store alone. Dexter seemed stunned to realize it as well. The odds are he died a long time ago, Milo stated flatly. Alice and Dexter scrambled to find words of comfort, but Milo just shook his head. They stopped and both lowered their eyes as Milo continued. But we can still help Alice find her answers. And we could still help Victor find his wife. And we can find a way out of Crowhaven permanently. He turned towards Dexter. With your parents. At this, Dexter looked up. Well, we should still keep an eye out for anything that might be a clue about your dad. Alice urged him on, and finally Milo agreed to appease them. Turning to the endless rows of vehicles, Milo solidified his resolve and took the first step forward. The cars stretched out for miles and featured many different makes and models of various vehicles for various purposes. There were convertibles, coupes, family sedans, and pickup trucks. But there were also school buses, postal trucks, delivery vans, and police cars. On one side were different sorts of heavy equipment meant for construction work, and farm tractors. Milo tried to stay alert in case of danger, but often found his eyes would wander to the dust-covered chrome and steel. On one car that really caught his gaze, he stopped to write his name in the dirt that had gathered on its windshield. Man, can you imagine having some of these things back when times were good? Asked Dexter as he eyed a flat black sports car. Were times ever good? Asked Milo. We could have raced them, Milo, said Dex excitedly, completely ignoring what Milo had said. Alice sneezed suddenly, and the two boys stopped to shush her. Sorry. It's just all of this dust. And she sneezed again. The sound of it seemed to carry out into the vastness of the room. The three of them stood frozen in fear as they waited for some repercussion that never came. We should move on, Milo uttered. As they rounded the corner, each of them heard the other gasp at what they discovered. Rows upon rows of military vehicles were followed by even more rows of helicopters and jet planes. The walls were lined with bombs and ammunition, and at the far end was the largest steel door that Milo had ever seen. It seemed to rise from the ground and into the air so high that it made Milo dizzy to look up at. What in the blazing hell does Elite need all of that for? Asked Dexter, forgetting to stay quiet. Milo was at a loss. As he looked out onto the mass of military vehicles, he felt a tightening in his stomach and a bead of sweat welled up on his forehead. If Elite had intended to raze the entire city to the ground, it still would only have required a fraction of the tools of war they found here. Something bigger was happening. That much was obvious, even if they didn't know what exactly. Milo, asked Alice at a near whisper as she stepped forward, what if there isn't an outside world left for us to run to? Milo understood why she would have such worries. With an army like that, Elite could have wiped out untold masses of people and would be nearly unstoppable. But he knew that they couldn't give up hope now. Hope was all they had left. No, we aren't going to let ourselves think like that, not now. Not yet. Milo tried his best to sound convincing. This looks like a war was coming, or still is, Dexter concluded. He sounded tired, but his words gave Milo his hook. That's it, Dexter. Maybe the war hasn't happened yet. Maybe Elite's plans crumbled with the rest of the city. We have to find out, or we're good as dead already. Alice looked out at the room. Maybe we can stop it. Those are some of the biggest maybes that I've ever heard. But Dexter was already changing his tone and stood back up. Let's go and find out. Slowly they marched between lines of trucks built for battle and planes made to drop bombs that would devastate entire city blocks. Tanks and medical vehicles seemed to be sitting and waiting for a call to action. It made Milo tremble from head to toe. but Dexter had the presence of mind to loot several of the trucks for guns and bullets. He gave Alice and Milo each a pistol and made sure to grab plenty of ammo for his rifle by the time they reached the massive door on the other side of the room. "Well, we're not getting through here," said Dex as he rapped a fist against the steel. The enormity of the door was even more staggering up close. Solid and unyielding, it stood like a monster over them. After giving the surrounding area a brief rundown, they could find no signs of how to open it. The walls were bare, and there didn't seem to be any kind of electronics anywhere that would open it either. Everywhere they turned, they came up empty. "There has to be another way out of here someplace. Something we've missed somehow," said Dexter. Milo turned his attention towards the wall to the left of the door and began to study each line. He thought he had noticed a slight shift in color where one of the gigantic panels that made up the room met with another. One of the panels had been painted a lighter shade of gray. "Do you guys see that too?" he asked, seeking confirmation that his sight wasn't blurring. Alice and Dexter both examined what Milo was pointing at, and then scanned around the room. As far as any of them could see, no other panels differed in color besides the light gray one next to the steel door. "Why is it that that's the only one like that on the entire wall?" asked Milo, seeing the others ask themselves the very same question. Before they knew exactly what they were all doing, the three of them were running across the room and began rubbing their hands along the wall, hoping to find something that would provide answers. "There must be something here," said Milo in a moment of desperation. Anything at all." Dexter moved in and ran his finger along the divide between the two panels, and pulled on a spot that felt loose. Suddenly, something within the wall made a clicking noise, and the panels seemed to shift. Dexter let out a burst of laughter at his success, and continued to pull the panel to the side. As he did so, he revealed a long hallway within that led to a brown door at the other end. The three of them peered down the hall with immense apprehension. "So, who's going in first?" asked Dex with another chortle. "What do you imagine it leads to? I mean, it could be dangerous," said Alice seriously. Dexter and Milo exchanged a look and broke out laughing at the absurdity of her statement. "Staying here would be just as dangerous. Everything we've done has been dangerous." "This is just a hallway and an office door," said Milo, and he almost convinced himself. As he finished, he took the first step through the door. With every movement, the hallway grew shorter, and the door at the other side seemed more intimidating. At last, Milo reached for the bronze of the handle, just as Dexter and Alice caught up with him. To everyone's great relief, the knob turned. Milo pushed the door open as if he were freeing himself from the prison that had held him his entire life, and swept in with his pistol drawn and ready to fire. "What is this place?" he asked, as his eyes traveled upwards and met Victor's. Victor's dark figure was standing in the center of a room full of video monitors, which were all displaying no signal, and shelves upon shelves of old tapes. "Security. Or, at least, that's what I think it was at one time," he said. Victor stepped forward and shook Milo's hand. Immediately, Milo could sense that there was a gravity in Victor's expression as he pulled Milo aside. "Milo, I very much need to speak with you. Of course, it's lucky that we could run back together here and find you. I was worried that we would not meet again." But Milo realized that Victor's solemn look wasn't about to go away anytime soon. "Wait, what's wrong? What's happened?" "I found my wife, Milo. At least I know where to find her now." His voice cracked as he spoke. "That's fantastic, Victor. Why have you not gone to her?" Milo gasped, but Victor held up his hand. "She's not going to be easy to reach, I'm afraid. She may be heavily surrounded. I couldn't risk going it alone." "I understand. Just what might she be surrounded by, Victor?" asked Milo. "Never you mind that yet. I need your help, Milo, or I'm hopeless. Will you come with me?" Milo nodded, but again Victor held up his hand, this time motioning towards Alice and Dexter as he did so. "I want them to stay behind, Milo, he said. Milo began to protest, but Victor raised his voice and continued speaking. The girl may find some answers here, and it would be much safer if she stayed behind. Both of them. I know you care about her safety, Milo. It's of vital importance to you, is it not? He glared at Milo, but said no more. I care about them both being safe. I want them both to get out of here. Victor smiled wide. Well, of course you do. But I see the way you look at her, Milo. And in its way, that makes everything different, doesn't it? Milo said nothing, as Victor was clearly correct. Fine, said Milo, exasperated. Just give me a moment with them and we can go. Milo approached his friends and couldn't help but to notice the broad smiles across their faces. It occurred to him that he must be one of the most truly blessed people to have ever lived, to have encountered such good friends. The hardships of their journey had entwined them in ways Milo could never have imagined, and it filled his heart with pride to know that they had trusted him with leading their escapade. All he could hope for now was their safe escape from Crowhaven, and new lives for everyone to lead. That was his purpose. Fellas, I need to have a word, he began. I'm going with Victor. Alice's eyes spread wide in astonishment. Dexter laughed in his usual way. Guys, I'm being serious. Please, I need you to listen to me. Dexter put his hand on Milo's left shoulder and squeezed gently. Milo, you're a genius sometimes, he laughed. But you are dumb as shit sometimes, too. If you honestly believe that we are going to split up right now, then you're out of your rabbit-ass mind. We're lucky to even be together like we are now, with Victor and everything. If we split up now, we might never find each other again. It's not happening. Milo closed his eyes and searched frantically for the right words to say. You guys will wait here for us and explore the tape library, he said. Milo, said Alice sharply. You're not leaving us behind. Her tone touched Milo. Something in her voice was begging him not to leave. But he had to convince them to let him go. Guys, let me speak, he said as he raised his hands and pleaded for the chance to get his point across. Get it out, said Dexter. Alice gave him a harsh look but pouted and collapsed against the wall. Milo thanked Dexter and began. You guys have followed me all of this way, not knowing if we were doing the right thing, and not even knowing if I knew who I was at some points. But you guys continued to trust me. We kept going together, and we made it to where we stand right now. I owe you some honesty in exchange for your loyalty. He looked quickly at both of them to confirm that they were truly listening. For a long part of our travels, I could see a man following us. Not Victor, but something else. It was a ghost, I think. Actually, I'm sure of it. They almost interrupted him here, but he cut them short. No, listen to me. He walked with us the entire way and kept watch. I couldn't figure out why the two of you couldn't see him. I wanted to ask you so many times. I wanted to ask you if I was losing my mind. So many times that I lost my mind over not asking. We could have helped you, Alice interjected. I was scared you would think I was crazy. I didn't want to lose your trust. I didn't want to lose you. They seemed to understand this on some level and urged him to continue with what he was trying to say. Well, anyway, when we plunged into the heat of this place on that damn elevator, I finally got my chance to speak with the ghost I'd been seeing. I spoke with the spirit. He gave me answers. But they were answers I knew you would never understand. Milo, we're listening, said Dexter assuredly. Right. Well, it became obvious who the spirit was. I didn't want to see it at first. He demanded that I look harder. Who was it? Asked Alice from the edge of her seat. It was my dad, said Milo, turning towards Dexter and smiling. I saw him, Dex. Dexter obviously thought this was a preposterous notion and was just about to say so when Alice slapped him on the knee and motioned for Milo to continue explaining. He showed me what I was too blind to see, Dexter. Like how long it had been since he had gone missing, and how silly it was to convince myself that he had a chance out here for this long. It all started to make sense. We've been lying to ourselves about what's been going on for so long that we've been convinced that nothing was really happening. Dexter agreed with this. He knew that things had changed dramatically at home. I knew he was gone, Dexter. I could feel it. But he told me there's still hope, and there's always hope. He told me to help Alice to find the answers to her questions. And I really truly think she might find it here in these tapes somewhere. That's why I want you guys to stay behind and start watching these damn things. It could help all of us, maybe even save all of us. But Milo, we still don't know if we can trust this guy, Dexter said while waving a hand at Victor and trying to remain quiet. That's the other part, Dex. My father told me to continue to help Victor, to help him find his wife. He explicitly said that I should. I don't know why. I don't think he would have said it if we couldn't trust Victor. I have to trust him too. Dexter was trying hard to understand. The crease between his brows stated that he was really trying to swallow all of this and support his friend, but he needed more confirmation. How do we know this isn't all just a scheme cooked up by elite to stop you from finding your dad and getting out of here? He said. It could all be some sort of illusion. Milo couldn't say much to that. He had no way to prove that Sitha's Pandora hadn't found some way to cloud Milo's mind from afar and plant an image of his father into his brain that didn't exist. All he had to go on was his own belief that what he had seen had indeed been real. It's a feeling, Dexter. That's all I have. Dexter stared into the eyes of his best friend, and Milo resisted the urge to look away, despite the tears welling up from within. I've always trusted you, Milo. I've always gone along with whatever stupid thing you decided to do and get us into. We've been through hell and fire and all kinds of other weird shit, but this is by far the craziest thing I could have ever imagined us doing. I'm scared, man. Honestly, I'm scared that everything we've been doing is all just a waste of time. Sometimes I wonder if you even care about me or my family anymore. Sometimes it seems like you're so wrapped up in the adventure you spin in your head, you forget I'm even here, and it hurts, man. You don't know it and you don't see it, but it really hurts. You leave me staring off and wondering what I've done wrong, while you go around in circles and I just keep following behind you. I do it because you're my friend, and I do it because I trust you to take care of me, like I would take care of you. He ran his hand through his blonde hair, and then wiped the tear from his own cheek that had fallen from his left eye. Then he picked Alice up off the floor by her hand. I know you care about her. I'm not stupid, Milo, I can see it. I've watched you guys, and tried to make sense of it, so that's how I know. Which means that if you care about her, then you're supposed to take care of her too. Do you understand? We have to take care of the people we care about. Milo tried to stop his trembling lips from shaking long enough to speak. He didn't like to admit it, but Dexter had made some valid points. He had always understood how Milo was feeling, even when Milo didn't know it himself. Milo wished he knew how to be there for Dexter that way, but it was a talent that only Dex had. Even though Dexter didn't talk about emotional things much, he had always been there for his friend. Dexter, I do understand. That's why I need you both to stay here. I need you to trust me so I can take care of you. You better come back, you son of a bitch. I'll kill you myself. said Dexter. Milo nearly stumbled as Dexter pulled him in and embraced him in a tight squeeze. We'll be waiting for you here. Milo hugged Alice and Dexter both again before turning on his heel and facing Victor. Together, they marched across the security room and through the rows of videotapes. There in the dark corner, they opened a door and disappeared to the other side and out into another long hallway.